So have you heard, as a mom who is breastfeeding, your infant needs to be given vitamin D supplementation, and you're wondering if it's an important recommendation? Maybe you're wondering, how much to give. If you're also formula feeding, should you also give vitamin D? Well, we're going to be talking all about that today. This is Dr. Obidi, pediatrician at Partners in Pediatrics and Family Health and CEO of Newborn Prep Academy, and I'm going to be talking about vitamin D today. So vitamin D is produced through the UVB portion of the sun rays when they hit our skin through a series of chemical reactions, and that nutrient, vitamin D, is really important for calcium homeostasis, which just means how calcium is regulated in our bodies, which again is important for your bone health and producing really strong bones. And so it's really important for us to have enough vitamin D in our bodies or in our diet daily. Now, infants who are exclusively breastfed tend to not have enough vitamin D because breast milk does not have enough vitamin D. And so those infants, it's recommended that they have about 400 international units of vitamin D commencing shortly after birth, and should continue for at least 6 months plus. Now, if you are also formula feeding, you will still have to be given at least 33 ounces of formula a day for you not to need to give your infant vitamin D supplementation. So, for the most part, if you're going to be mostly breastfeeding, you really should give your infant vitamin D. Now, again, like I said, vitamin D is usually made naturally through sunshine, but the problem is it's recommended not to expose them to that much sun, especially directly on the sun's rays for the first 6 months of life, because they really can be harmful to their skin. So at the end of the day, it's really difficult to be able to have your baby produce enough vitamin D naturally. Now, you may have heard that what if, you as a breastfeeding mom just takes enough vitamin D? Now, it might be possible to get enough vitamin D as a mom if you supplement really high levels, but you'll have to be taking anywhere from 4,000 units to about 6,400 units a day to possibly give enough vitamin D in your breast milk for your breastfeeding infant. And actually, for those moms, if you were deficient or insufficient, if you had insufficient amounts of vitamin D during pregnancy, your baby might actually be born already deficient, where your high levels of vitamin D supplementation afterwards may not be enough to meet their requirements. So at the end of the day, it really is important to give that vitamin D. And because studies have shown that of infants who have rickets, which is a kind of bone disease that is caused by, a large portion of rickets, those who have rickets, it's caused by vitamin D deficiency. And in those infants, there was a large study that showed that in the US, of those infants or those children who have rickets, about 95% of them had vitamin D deficiency. And another study was done in Alaska, where they took all the children who had rickets, and they showed that about 98% of them were breastfed infants. And so at the end of the day, it does really show that vitamin D is important for bone health. And so if you're exclusively breastfeeding, or you're supplementing but not up to 33 ounces of formula a day, you really should give your baby some vitamin D. So like I said, the quantity really, or the amount of vitamin D you need to supplement with is 400 international units. Oftentimes that can be accomplished by just a vitamin D preparation, where it typically comes about 1 ml once a day. So it's not a very large amount of volume, and it's easy to administer to your infant. Now, I hope this really has helped clear up why you need vitamin D supplementation if you're breastfed, if you're breastfeeding your baby exclusively or mostly breastfeeding your infant. Now, you may be asking, what about the sun's rays? Like I said earlier on, first of all, For your infants who are less than 6 months of age, you really don't want to expose them to sun anyhow. But should they be older, so for instance, your older infants or your children, how much, or even yourself, how much of the sun's rays should you be exposed to produce enough vitamin D? If you're light skinned, so like Caucasian heritage, you will need to be exposed to the sun between the hours of 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for about 10 to 15 minutes a day. Now that drastically goes up to about 3 times the length of time if you are sort of medium skin toned. So thinking about those, for instance, from the Far East Asia or of Asian background, they will need to probably be exposed for about 30 to 45 minutes a day. And again, between the hours of 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the spring, summer, and fall. In the winter time, just because of the way the sun's rays hits the northern hemisphere, there's usually not enough of those UVB rays to produce vitamin D, and that's why you have a lot of vitamin D deficiency during the winter months if you're not supplementing with vitamin D. Now, if you're dark skinned like I am, of half African heritage, that goes drastically up to 6 to 10 times the amount of exposure of sunshine every day, and that's going to be anywhere from 1 hour to 2.5 hours of sun exposure every day to be able to produce enough vitamin D. You can see why there's a lot of vitamin D deficiency and insufficiency going on here in the northern hemisphere, and especially here in the United States, where I'm recording this right now. And the natural sources of vitamin D, if you're wondering, the best sources are usually from oil-rich fish like salmon, herring, mackerel, and other things like animal organs, liver, egg yolk. And you can imagine these are all foods that kids typically don't like to eat, and even adults oftentimes don't like to eat. And so that's why, again, there's a lot of vitamin D deficiency and insufficiency going on in our communities. Well, I hope this is helpful. There are some plant sources of vitamin D. Typically, these can also be all gotten over the counter if you're older and thinking of supplementation for yourself or your older kids. For older kids, that may be anywhere from 1 year to about 18 years of age. That may be somewhere about 600 international units a day. Oftentimes it's thought that you may even need higher levels if you're dark skinned like I am. But I really want to encourage you to discuss this with your pediatrician if you're wondering if your infant needs vitamin D supplementation, or even your children or yourself. Again, really important nutrient to have in your diet, and I hope this is useful. Wherever you're watching this, there'll be links to resources that can help you as a parent taking care of a newborn, and I really want to encourage you to click into those links and come back here to the channel. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe and share this with a friend. All right, till next time, bye for now.